Well, I began working at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and that's a building full of very strange things and many surprising and strange stories. And I'll never forget one day I came into my office and there was a stench of chemicals in my office. And I made inquiries and I found out that right next door to my office was the mummy storage room, where the museum stored 20,000 human mummies. And it's an incredible number. These are not Egyptian mummies, these were mostly bodies that had been recovered from North America and South America. And so I managed to talk my way into this room. And in the middle of the room was a bright green mummy, a very famous mummy called the Copper Man. And it had been found in a copper mine in Chile. It was a 5,000-year-old Indian who had been mining copper. And I was fascinated by this mummy, and so I did some research into it and I wrote a story about the Copper Man and its interesting history. And after I wrote that story, I got a call from Lincoln Child, who is my co-author with these books. This was our first one together, Relic. And he said, "I read your article on the Copper Man. It was fascinating. Would you like to write a book about the museum, a history of it?" And I said, fine. So I wrote this book about the museum, and when it was finished, Lincoln asked me if he could have a tour of the museum. And I said, fine, but I don't have authorization to take you to some of these private areas. And he said, well, I really want to see the private areas. How can we do that? And I thought about it, and then I said, well, why don't we do it late at night when no one will be there? They won't challenge us. So I gave Lincoln a midnight tour of the museum, and at the end of the tour, he turned to me and he said, "Doug, this is the most terrifying building in the world. We've got to write a thriller set in this building." And that became our first thriller, The Relic, which was made into a movie and became a great hit as a movie and also a bestseller. And I'm very proud that The Relic is available in French, and I hope that French readers will enjoy it. Well, Lincoln and I wrote The Relic, and it was a great success, and we decided to write more books together. And many of our readers ask us, how do both of you write together? Because Lincoln and I also write novels on our own. And well, I have to tell you, it's a somewhat challenging process to write with a writing partner. Generally, the way it works is that we plot the books together, and Lincoln has certain specialties, computers, he's very good at plotting. I have certain specialties, things I'm good at, character perhaps. And we get an outline, and then I write the first draft of the first few chapters, and then I send them to Link, and he rewrites my beautiful, deathless prose, which makes me very angry. So I rewrite his beautiful prose, which makes him angry. And we go back and forth like this, getting madder and madder at each other until the publisher rips the manuscript out of our hands. But that's how we write together, and somehow the end result is better, perhaps, than what we could have done individually. Now, in The Relic, we created a special character. His name is Pendergast. He is actually of French origin, way back, going back through New Orleans. And he's a very eccentric detective, perhaps a cross between Sherlock Holmes and Mycroft Holmes, with a little bit of Hannibal Lecter thrown in, because he's not completely normal. But we introduced him in The Relic, and he has appeared in most of our novels since. And he has developed quite a following. Well, we also write novels by ourselves, solo novels, and Lincoln and I often have different interests as well as similar interests, and those different interests are what we put into our solo novels. Link's solo novels are very technical and scientific. Mine are more adventure stories like the Codex, which involves the search for a lost tomb in Honduras. And this actually is based on a true story. I actually know an adventurer, an explorer, who was looking for a lost city called the White City in Honduras. He never was able to find it. He actually located it through aerial photography from space, but unfortunately the Honduran government would never allow him to investigate the area, probably because they were looting it themselves, the Honduran military. But anyway, the Codex is based on, it's an adventure story set in Honduras. It's about a wealthy collector who buries himself and all his treasures, and he issues a challenge to his three sons, who he's always considered his sons to be somewhat worthless. He issues them a challenge. Whoever can find my tomb can rob it and keep the inheritance. And that's how the novel opens. Now, of course, the end is a big surprise. I wouldn't want to give it away, but it doesn't end in any way that you might expect. I'm very pleased to be published in France in the French language. It was the first foreign language I learned in school. I've forgotten most of it. J'ai oublié tout. But I have always loved France, and it's a great delight to know that my novels are available in French, and I love to hear from French readers. I can still read French, so if you write me in French, I will answer in English. And the way to contact me is to go to my website. It's www.prestonchild.com, and you can email me from the website in French, and I'll be delighted to answer your emails. Thank you very much.